There it goes. We're officially live.
I have to go to the bathroom. No, I'm kidding.
No, Marcus, you're not allowed to. Okay, here we go. Intro video.
We're rolling.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Nerdbuzzed!
Nerdbuzzed doesn't condone the consumption of alcohol by any persons under the age of 21. Please drink responsibly.
We got an extra audio there. Welcome to Nerdbuzzed, the podcast where we talk about all the nerdy stuff that we care about and drink a cool frosty brew while we're doing it. I'm your host, Marcus Ellinger, and it's just me. So I'd like to welcome our guest. Thank you so much, Slade Steel Soul, or Gary Webb, whatever you prefer to go by.
Depends on the moment. I mean, I know some people get confused by the screen names. Marcus Ellinger, for example. Hence the reason my Twitter handle had to be changed to include both titles.
I think
that's okay. Steps are okay.
I think I was one of those people that encouraged you to do that. Because
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, we were communicating on Twitter, and I couldn't find you. I had no idea who you were. You kept talking to me, and I was like, who the hell is this? You're like, oh, it's Gary.
I just show up.
Yeah.
Like I said, you had to practice your shut-ups. Because it's probably going to come into play here tonight.
That's all right. We're just going to kind of throw rules out the window today. And I already even broke them because I just had a drink of my beer. But it's okay because we've already drank them before. Jack is out. He doesn't feel good. So I said, stay home. Don't get me sick. Jay is working like a responsible person because he has a real job. And, yeah, right? So that leaves you and me, Gary. So
that's all right. We can hold down the fort.
That's right. So please, I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat here too while I do all this. So if you have anything to say, please do. We will try to both keep an eye on it and answer any questions that you guys have. Today we are going to talk about Destiny 2 and dive into some Venom chit-chat. Neither of us have seen it yet, so this will be our pre-game. I guess maybe is that the initial question? Are you going to go see it, Gary?
Well, I mean, I think I have to go see it.
That's kind of how I feel.
It's probably not going to be a first day one watch, but we'll get to that.
Okay. So before we get started on all that stuff, let's do the Nerdbuzz cheers anyway to represent the rest of the nerds out there. To all the nerds, through all the fuzz, bottoms up, let's get Nerdbuzz.
Nerdbuzz.
Cheers, buddy.
Cool, crisp, and refreshing.
It's funny because my green screen even works with your Mountain Dew bottle on Skype for some reason.
I didn't even think about that. So it looked like I was drinking nothing, like I was just going through the motions.
Yes, it did.
Awesome. Couldn't have planned it better myself.
That's the magic of Mountain Dew. So before we dive in too much, I do want to say, please subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Follow Nerdbuzz on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook. All those ways. Tell your friends. It really, really helps us out. We're so close to our 100 subscribers, so we get our own vanity YouTube channel, right, instead of the weird algorithm. Wouldn't that be awesome? So please do it, right? If you're already, what is the rule? If you're already subscribed, you can mash subscribe as long as it's even numbers, right?
Even numbers.
Even numbers. If you're not subscribed, feel free to mash it all you want, but maintain an odd number.
Hold on, let me use my toes real quick.
Thanks for showing up. I'm glad you showed up prepared. That's why you didn't wear shoes or socks, right?
Yeah, I actually didn't realize I'd actually pulled my foot that high enough for it to be shining on the camera.
Okay, well, let's dive in right away on some Destiny 2 because it was our Nerd Play game. We try to pick a free PlayStation Plus game. We try to do it every month. Sometimes we're not the best at it, but we played Destiny 2 this past month. I should have played more than I did. I played most of what I played with you, Gary.
That you did.
I want to say there's like a few hours here and there that maybe I dove in and did a little bit with Fwant, Jack's dad. But mainly I played with you. It's a game that everybody has hounded me to play, actually. I have a bunch of friends that play it. They all really wanted me to get it and play it, and it finally came out for free. So, I don't know, I would say I got like 15 hours in, something like that. Enough to get a little bit of a taste.
You know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. after
you
playing
don't
it.
know what's going on at some points.
Yeah, I rarely do. So I guess I did my classic kind of pick it apart with some goods and some bads about it. I know that you're aware of one of my complaints about it because we ran into it and it was kind of super annoying in the middle of it.
Yes.
Remember that when Tuna, we were trying to get you, me, Fwant, and Tuna involved, and for some reason you can't do 4 players in the co-op.
And the worst part of the whole thing is there's not one set size that will cover all the activities, which makes it even more maddening. Like how you're talking what we were doing there in the co-op and just like the free roam and such, you're limited to 3. But then once you move into the Crucible or what have you, then it's fire teams of 4. Then once you go into the raid, you're at fire teams of 6. There's nothing that you can move through with one group to really conquer all of the challenges, which does get kind of frustrating.
Yeah, it was like, I don't really understand the reasoning behind any of that. I mean, is it just so popular that they're not willing to dedicate servers to campaign maybe? Like, I don't know. Like, the other modes are more popular. There's only 3 classes, I guess, right? So
yes, 3 classes, each with 9, like 18 different variations.
So, well, and even when we played 3 players, we had 2 of us were the same class anyway.
Yes.
So, I mean, that kind of negates that reason, right? So, yeah. that I would say that was the one big complaint I had about it, which really is pretty minor because the 3 of us did have an awesome time. It just would have been cool to have that 4th guy. 3's a weird number.
The only thing I'm thinking of is it comes down to like when you're in the public spaces, how they will randomly matchmake you with other teams, and 3 was how the rounded number for what they could, because they're constantly plugging and chugging, putting people here with this group over there, and then you walk down the same corridor, but you'll split off into your separate instances. It's the only thing that I can think of that makes sense.
Yeah, and not to discredit you, but that still sounds like a pretty lame reason to me.
Oh, well, yeah, but, I mean, the only logical reason I could come up with.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's just talk about the things that we'll keep rolling with some of my complaints because, I like to ruin everything.
Yes.
The team members are bad. The third person thing isn't really a complaint. I kind of wish they would let you do it. Like, I was fine. Yeah, because when you go to the the farms or the whatever you want to call it, the gathering hub place, right?
Yeah.
It is only third person. You can't even put it in first person.
Yes.
And then when you play the game, it's only first person. And I could see that turning people off to the game, people that don't like a first person shooter, because the third person worked really well in the farm. It's not like it was glitchy or it didn't control well. Like maybe if there was more chaos in an actual fight, it wouldn't work as good, but it seemed like a feature they could have easily implemented.
And they really could, and there are instances where you do switch to third person, even out in the field, when you're using your special, when you're using a sword, when you're using a rocket launcher. And a lot of people would prefer to go down the third person route. I know that. I mean, heck, Marcus, how often in the last, 2 weeks have I changed my profile picture on Twitter because I got my guy looking awesome the way I want him to look? But then I don't see it. I never see it unless I'm in those hub worlds.
Yeah. Maybe it's to sway vanity. Is that what it is? They want you to play the game and not just stare at yourself the whole time.
But that's what they want you to stare at yourself because because that's where the microtransactions come in. That's what you buy, is you buy the cosmetic stuff. It doesn't make any sense.
I agree. They should let you go in third person, especially because it works well. It's not like when you're at the farm and in third person, it's all janky or something. It runs great. So that was one thing I just couldn't quite figure out. Let's see. The other thing, the main thing that I think that why it didn't super grab me is because it's very MMO. It just is.
Yes.
And I'm not the biggest fan of an MMO.
The thing that keeps because I'm generally in your camp too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've dabbled with the DCU online or Neverwinter and such, but I mean the moment-to-moment gameplay of Destiny, because from its controls, are polished enough and fun enough that it lets me kind of overlook that in the moment. But yeah, the storyline, I mean, it's kind of shoestrung together. You get a little bit of it here, instance, and it's definitely pocketized.
Yeah, and it makes it
But-
hard to. The thing I've ran into with MMOs is that you're in whatever the like social area is, or like if you're at the farm in Destiny, or even if you go to a planet, there's like that main area where the enemies will constantly be showing up, and you're always taking them out, and you're playing with your guy with whoever you want. Then right, all in taking everyone out, but then to actually find the section where the missions are is slightly convoluted. Like I think once you do it a little bit, you kind of figure it out, and it doesn't seem so weird. But initially, it's not the clearest thing to try to find in there, and I think it's partially because there's just so much crap going on.
Yeah, until you learn that you have to drop that waypoint on the map onto your next location, or otherwise you're just going to wander. Because I mean, it's a big, wide open spaces, and there's not a direct path, from one story mission to the other. As far as okay, I finished that, it doesn't automatically move you to the next one. You have to sometimes explore clear on the other side of the map to find the next mission.
Yeah, while all this other crap's going on.
All this other stuff's going on with public events dropping and bad guys warring amongst each other and all sorts of craziness. Sometimes random dance-offs right there in the middle of the fields. It does happen.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's kind of what they were trying to go for. But yeah, I see exactly what you're talking about. It doesn't have quite the strength that you would expect, that you would want from, like a traditional single player. So it does very much lean onto the MMO tropes, despite the fact they constantly say it's not an MMO.
It's totally an MMO. Like, I don't exactly know what an MMO is, and I've had this debate with other people. Like, people will swear to me that, like, GTA is not an MMO, right? Like, that's just an online game. But
Yes.
It seems to have a lot of the elements that an MMO has. Like, the hub world is just the city, and it is just chaos while you try to find different mission points and things in that city, which seems very MMO to me. I don't know if it's not M enough, right? There's not massive enough.
That's not massive enough.
I
But
guess.
really, I mean, it's still multiple multiplayer online RPG, right?
Yeah. I mean, it has all those other elements. I don't know. It's kind of nitpicking it. I mean, really, any of these complaints I have I think are pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. I do want to give a shout out to Dad. He joined us. Thanks, Dad. Dad. We look forward to you showing up every week. That's awesome, man. He's playing. He's doing some XP grinding in ESO. So, and then watching us also. So he's doing Nerdbuzzed grinding and ESO grinding. We appreciate it, buddy. So really, like I said, those are all pretty minor. If we dive into things I really enjoyed about it, because there were definitely things about this game I really did like. As clear as day, the very first thing, when you pick up the controller, you fire up the game controls beautifully.
It just feels right.
It does. And I think the biggest compliment to them is that they didn't try to like reinvent the formula really in any way as far as the control scheme goes. If you've played a first-person shooter, unless you played one of the weird ones that decided to mix it up, your typical first-person shooter controls translate directly over to Destiny, which makes it feel really comfortable in your hands. I really appreciated that about it.
Which totally makes sense, because, I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love me some GoldenEye. GoldenEye was phenomenal in its time. Mm-hmm. But Halo was when we got to the modern shooter, that's what they did.
Yeah.
They took us from GoldenEye to the twin-stick, smooth-playing shooters that unfortunately dominate the market today.
And they just... So basically they invented the mold, and they're just still using it.
Yes, that's exactly what it boils down to, especially with the new expansion that came out, which I know you haven't played. It definitely, you can feel some very strong Halo vibes, in a good way, but still.
Yeah.
I mean, you can definitely see the connective tissue between the two.
Well, and really for me, Halo's never been... Halo was fine. It was one of the first games that you could actually play like co-op campaign, like couch play style, which was loads of fun, and I did enjoy doing that. I basically any game I can play with a buddy where we can just like run through and cause mayhem, and we can drink a beer while we do it or whatever and socialize. That game instantly is better for me. Like that makes that game so much more enjoyable. Otherwise, I'm going to scrutinize the hell out of that game because it has to keep me entertained that whole time. I don't have my buddies there to help facilitate that, right? And I think Destiny does a good job on its own, but it incorporates friends, so like I said, it gets a huge bonus. The controls are phenomenal, easy to pick up and play. The visual movement in the game, when you like pan the camera around, super, super slick and smooth. I really enjoyed that about it too. It reminded me almost of like the Borderlands remaster. Have you played that?
Yes.
And that's like the same thing. Like there's no stutter when you move up and down or left and right. It's just crisp and clear. And I really felt like this was maybe not quite that crisp and clear, but really, really close to it. So I gave it huge props for that.
There's a lot of details in there that they're pushing, and that nothing against Borderlands, but I mean their art style is more conducive for, keeping things smooth.
Yeah.
But yeah, Borderlands is awesome. I do, especially the one thing I really loved about the remaster was they had 4-player couch co-op.
Yes.
Something that didn't exist in the last one. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, right. It's one of the last games that's probably going to ever do that. I know, right? Sorry to just. I warned you, Gary. I ruined everything.
No, it's all right. It's okay. I got this.
I think for me, this is better than Halo. I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed Halo. And again, I think it's that online element that this brought. I've never actually played Halo Online. My only Xbox experiences were kind of before online really took off because I'm really old, right? But I'm definitely, what it boils down to for me is it was loads of fun. It's super easy to play. Especially considering it's an MMO. I've tried to play others where it's so convoluted to try to figure out all the menus and everything going on that it's really overwhelming. Your skills. Yeah, and this one was, there was a little bit of a learning curve, but it wasn't super steep. So, but I appreciated so much about the game, and I will definitely keep playing it. I don't know that I'll like dive in and buy DLC. Like I love that it was free for me, and I hope that there's, after I get through kind of the main campaign and playing with buddies, that there will still be things I can do online.
Oh yes.
Okay, like I'm not gonna cap out.
Happens. No, I mean eventually, yes, you will. I'm not sure where the cap is without expansions, but I mean once you beat the campaign, then we've got the raid. That Mitt is so excited because he's never gotten that particular trophy, and he really wants to get that. So he got real excited when I told you were playing. Nice. But that is where Destiny is at its best, where it's the end game challenge. That's the whole point of playing through everything else, is to experience this, where they're constantly throwing unique mechanics and encounters that you have to look at from a sideways view. And it truly hinges on your ability to work together and communicate, even more so than necessarily even than your gunplay, although that's still important. And you'll fail a lot, but it's just everybody will. But once you get it down and everything happens just right that first time, then it's a completely new experience that I haven't had in any other game.
So maybe the 3-player campaign is its way of giving you some training wheels to get down some sort of a team dynamic and figure that out a little more concisively with the smaller team before you dive in and do these 6-player events that are going to be clearly twice as chaotic, right?
Oh yes, they get absolutely intense, and you're screaming but you've got everybody's back, and yeah, that's the epitome of what Destiny is. And it's like I said, I've not had an experience like it in any other game I played, and I played at least 5 or 6. Well, I'm sure you notice I'm on pretty much every day. I'm playing Destiny because there's something different for me to do every day. That's what keeps me engaged. And then, I've got my clan that I'm with. There's the House of Merlin. There's a guy, Yengi. I mean, literally every night we'll get together for an hour or two, do everything we can that day, and then we'll go about our business and do, I'll start watching movies or what have you. But that next day, there's some more stuff there that for me to do that will progress my character.
Yeah. And I love it when a game will do that, when it kind of keeps itself fresh, right? It is really, really cool. Lately, my super game partner has been Fwant, Jack's dad. We did Destiny multiple times together, just me and him. We've been cracking out on Dying Light again. I finally talked him into getting it. Super amazing, like you want to play a really sweet, like storyline campaign with a buddy, kind of very similar to sort of a Borderlands style. It's all about loot and crafting and all that kind of stuff. But that game is beyond fun. Like the way to play that game is with a buddy, for sure.
Okay, I must be thinking of a different game.
Have you played Dying Light? It's like the super zombie horde.
It's like
a first-person it's not really, you can get guns. So I guess when you have a gun, it's a first person shooter, but it's more about making melee weapons. And then you take on hordes of zombies as you try and complete different missions in the map. And I'm not a zombie guy. Like usually if somebody says, hey, play this zombie game, that's like an instant, I don't know. But Dying Light, phenomenal. You can get the full deluxe edition with everything. I think you can get it on the PlayStation Store for like $19, which is dirt cheap for what you get.
This is true, but I don't know if you know, there's a game coming out in just a couple of weeks that I'm kind of looking forward to. Red Dead 2.
I know, me too. That's what I was gonna say. Usually I would pick another nerd play, right? I'm not even gonna do that to myself. I'm just gonna remain super hyped for Red Dead, and we're not picking anything. And I think we got one more week. I'm gonna have my brother on, and we're gonna talk some Fortnite because he's super Fortnite nerd, and they just did their the cross-play, so we can actually play now. PlayStation said, okay, we'll do it.
Everybody, yes.
So, and he told me that doesn't matter because he's actually been able to play online anyway with, like, on multiple systems. You just have to do it through the Fortnite, like, online or something. I don't know. He's going to explain it. But he's going to come back. And then I think after that, yeah, right? After that, it's going to be Red Dead until Red Dead comes out, and then probably a couple weeks after that. I think that's all we're going to have to talk about.
That's a rather conservative estimate, I think, on your part.
We might have to have you come back, right?
More than a couple of weeks. Maybe not dedicated the entire show, but I bet you it's going to pop up.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I am so beyond excited for it. Yeah. I guess I'll throw a number on Destiny as based on my experience, right? Like I said, I didn't play through the whole thing. I really enjoyed what I did play, but I kind of think I'm glad it was free, I guess, which sounds terrible, but I am. I'm glad it was free. It's a super awesome bonus. I get to play with you guys online. I would totally play with you again online, or Fwant, or Mick, Impinator. I would totally play with him. But I think in like just the realm of the games that I personally prefer, if I go to my 1 through 10 here, I think I would give it like a man, I'm torn between like a 7 and an 8. I'd give it an 8. I think the online elements for me make it worthy of that 8. Because again, it's loads of fun to play with people. And the community seems to be pretty cool. Like it's not like a GTA where you run into a bunch of assholes, right?
No, not unless you're on like Twitter or what have you. End game, no, you don't have to deal with the griefing that you do in GTA. Matter of fact, you can only kill yourself. I've tried, but it didn't work. No matter what you do.
Maybe that's what makes.
I think it was Jack I was trying to kill, if I recall correctly.
We're all trying to kill Jack.
None of us have yet succeeded. Does not show anything towards our.
Right, we all need to try harder. Oh, nice. Jack says shout out to his dad. Jack is listening, so he just heard us talk some smack about him.
Awesome.
So brace yourself for more of that, Jack.
Nothing but loads of Jack.
His ears were burdened, right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep playing it. I don't know. We'll see. I'll play through. We'll get to that end game, and if it is loads of fun because I got this for free, maybe I would get some DLC. We'll have to see. You'll have to keep me updated as they keep releasing stuff for the Forsaken and all that. And if it's still just super amazing, you might be able to convince me, Gary, if you ask really nice.
I was like, my thought is, I would not even tell you, even me, as much as I am into Destiny, I would not tell you right now to buy the DLC. Until you get to see what the end game is and actually get to experience it, it's not a decision that you would necessarily want to make. Because it's not for everybody. I have a special attachment to Destiny, but, not everybody does. Yeah. And it does get rough sometimes. The last year hasn't exactly been pleasant, but they finally righted the ship.
Yeah, it had a really rocky start. That was one thing I wanted to ask you. Would you say that now that they've done the Forsaken and everything, that Destiny 2 is definitively better than the first Destiny?
Yes. And don't get me wrong, when Destiny 2 launched, for the first 2 weeks or so, everybody was over the moon with it. It was phenomenal. It fixed so many problems with the first one. It It was more accessible. Like, had you jumped in then, you wouldn't have had the confusion you've run into with how to navigate certain things. But the problem was, after that 2 weeks, there was nothing else to do. Because they'd casualified it so much that those of us who played a lot, I mean, we were done. And there was nothing, there wasn't a hook to keep us going. Because they overcorrected. I mean, all the problems that everybody lays at Destiny 2's feet, if you go back and look, it was all stuff that a lot of people wanted out of Destiny 1. But, ask not lest you receive.
Yeah,
I think I screwed it up, but I think you know where I was going with that.
Close enough. If it's wrong, it's a new quote, and you get to own it, Gary.
That's it. That's right.
The other question, is there anything that Destiny 1 had that you wish that Destiny 2 would implement?
Sparrow racing.
Oh, okay. That's got to be coming, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would think so. It was generally just it was like an event that would pop up every, 3-4 weeks or so, just part of a weekly rotation. And yeah, they'd have the Sparrow Racing League, and you'd jump on your Star Wars-esque speeder bikes and race around these tracks, which was a lot of fun. And in third person, so you could see how badass I looked. It was nice.
That's awesome, because I'm okay with with a shooter, like when you're running around on foot at first person. But if I'm driving, or flying or whatever, I totally prefer third person. I want to see. Yeah. If I'm drifting, I want to see that drift. Right? That makes it cool.
I used to be okay in a shooter and like a Destiny. Yes, I want that. But if I'm playing some Forza or Gran Turismo, no, I'm in there with the steering wheel right in front of my screen, driving as close to first person as I can.
Well, if Jack is still listening, because Jack said he was wondering about the Sparrow Racing too. So it's got to be coming out. Like, you guys can't be the only two questioning it, right? That's coming.
No. I mean, it's coming at some point. I mean, the last 6-8 months, they did a lot of work and completely changed how Destiny 2 functioned. From the ground up, they completely changed loadouts, what weapons you could equip, how everything worked, the shader system, the infusing system to upgrade your gear. They completely overhauled it. So now that they've got that done, and generally they're on an upswell, that's when they're planning on adding some more of the things like Sparrow Race, things that didn't matter in the day to day, but were nice events.
Yeah, especially for people that have reached the end game and need more Destiny to occupy their time.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite class? I did want to ask you
Hunter,
that
all the time.
Hunter. Why is the Hunter your favorite?
Well, okay, the screen name Slade Steelsoul started out as my I think it was a Hunter class, and Ultima Online, that's where I created it way back in the day. We're talking 90s, playing some MMO on 56K dial-up. And that's just, become my persona in games, and he's always the rogue, he's always the sneak. He was a D&D character for about 3 years, and I did all sorts of crazy stuff with him. So that's just who he is. For example, in Skyrim, he doesn't do Slade Steelsoul wouldn't do alchemy, so I don't do alchemy, even though I'm a thief. He's got a character, he's got a type, and Hunter's just what fits. He's got a whole backstory that makes no sense, but it's still there.
Full of misspoken quotes and everything, right?
Oh yes,
yeah, of course.
A couple of correct. I mean, he originated them, but
yeah. So if you had to score Destiny, right? You can give a little more of a definitive score. You get to pick, 1 through 10, going from super turd all the way up to the unicorn. What would you put on it? It's not the easiest thing to do, I don't think.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, it's by no means perfect, so a 10 is definitely out of the question. I'd probably give it a 9.
A 9? So pretty close, though.
No.
I mean, a 9
pretty
is a
close.
very...
There's still some things that need to work, and had you asked me this 4 months ago, it probably would have been a 7.5 or an 8.
Okay, kind of right where I was sitting there.
Forsaken has so reinvigorated everything in the game that it's been a month now, and I've barely scratched the surface into diving into all the hidden secrets and everything that they've got going on in there. Yeah. The in-game city has changed every week since Forsaken came out. which they didn't tell us about. It'll just suddenly change. No warning. They've been doing a lot of that lately. All of a sudden there'll be a new bad guy. You kill him. Hey, there's a whole new quest to get you this new exotic weapon that we didn't tell you was going to be there.
Yeah.
They just wait for the community to find it.
Well, and hopefully people, I've said it a million times, and I still have friends that don't do this, but you pay for your PlayStation Plus. You pay for that to be able to play games online, and that, like, really, I think that's what you're mainly paying for, but the bonus of that is that you get these other games with it, right? You get a handful every month. You don't even have to bog down your system with them. Just use the app for your phone. The app works really well. They've revamped it now, so it doesn't crash all the time, and it works great. Go in there, put them in your cart, buy them. They'll be totally free. I think this month it was like $120 worth of games that we got this month. Not that all of them are awesome, but if you ever decide to go down that path or you run out of games, I mean, I've got hundreds of games that are just sitting and waiting in a library that aren't even bogging down my system at all until I actually click download. It's a perk of your PS Plus. Just do it, people. You could own at least the base game of Destiny for free.
Well, like I told you, I just jumped to PlayStation back in February. My Xbox, I mean, granted, that's got the backwards compatibility in there too, so 360 games and stuff I bought carried over, but 447 games, something like that.
Yeah. It's worth it.
And I would say 2/3 to 3/4 of them were just given to me because I've kept Xbox Live Gold, and that was 4 games every month for 3-4 years.
Yeah,
it adds up.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. A lot of them are turds, but there's some really good ones in there, or there's some that they're not worth buying. Well, okay, I don't want to say they're not worth buying, but that I wouldn't want to spend full price for. But you know what? There's something there, and I don't regret playing it. It was something interesting, something new.
Yeah, I guess that's the one thing about Destiny that I'm curious about is if I did buy the Forsaken, and then for some reason lost my PlayStation Plus, would I then have to buy the original game again, or you think that just comes with Forsaken?
I'm pretty sure that in Destiny's case, you have it regardless of your PS Plus drops down. They made special arrangements for it. You have Destiny, you're not going to lose Destiny, even if your Plus expires.
Yeah, it kind of seems like PlayStation is kind of the place to play Destiny if you can. Like, they seem to get things early, exclusive stuff. Yeah. So, well, did we talk enough about Destiny? I know you're chomping at the bit to talk about Venom.
Yeah. Sorry, I warned you he might sneak out of his room. He just did. Anyway. Let's talk some Venom. Sorry.
So Venom has got some incredibly mixed reviews. I know that you've dabbled and heard about them.
Yes. I believe Rotten Tomatoes score is currently sitting at 33%. It started at 25 when they released it. It's at 33 now.
Damn. So, which really, I'm more okay with superhero movies being like critically reviewed now and actually getting held to a standard that's higher than the old standard of it doesn't really matter as far as the quality in that it's a superhero movie, right?
Yeah.
Like that used to be the pile that they were all lumped into, and I think that what's happened over the past 10 years now,
okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally. They're what's dominating the movie scene, and I'm fine with it. That if they're held to a higher standard, it's like if this is going to be the standard of what we're all have to go to the theater and see, then I think that that means they should be held to a standard of a good movie.
And I mean, it totally should, but I also think that for like comic fans like myself, despite the fact it's sitting at a 25%, it's still higher than, say, Catwoman, for example. And
that's saying a lot. That's another Slade Steel Soul quote right there.
Exactly.
It's better than Catwoman.
And apparently the back and forth between Venom and this Eddie and the symbiote are the best parts of the movie, which really, I mean, that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
We're nerding out.
We're nerding out here, so please go to bed.
And who are you talking to?
I'm talking to Marcus. We discussed this. Go to bed.
Marcus.
I love the window into the life of a father nerd.
What? I'm just normally well.
No, you need to go to bed right now. It is bedtime. Go to bed. I apologize for these technical difficulties that I'm currently experiencing.
How do you feel about Tom Hardy in general?
I like him as an actor. His Bane left a little something to be desired, primarily due to his voice.
Or lack thereof, right?
Or lack thereof, yes. As much as Assassin's Creed wasn't a very good movie, I thought he was all right in it. I think he might. I think from what I've seen of it, he does a fairly good job. But it seems to be that it's mainly the stuff around him that really falls apart.
Yeah, I don't think of Tom Hardy as like, hey, Tom Hardy's in it, I got to go see it, right? Like I've never thought of him as that kind of an actor. I know that some people are totally into it and just think he's just the best actor ever, and they love all the movies he's in. I liked him in the Mad Max movie, but again, that's because he had like 3 lines, right? Which was awesome because that's Mad Max. So that was great because it was so true to it. But he also did have to do a bunch of acting. I agree that Bane was not my favorite. That is one of my least favorite of the Batman movies is that one with Bane in it. Overall, I give him an kind of, I guess. Like, it doesn't really do it for me. I'd love to see him, like, maybe this will make him shine, right? Like, if he is the best parts of this movie.
Well, I mean, he's off to an okay start. His competition is Topher Grace. So I can't foresee him being a worse Venom than that was.
No.
But, I mean, it's clear, at least from the reviews, this is probably going to be the second failed attempt by Sony to launch a Spider-Verse.
Yep.
It was aborted after Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I don't see this as being, I mean, you could maybe compare this to Batman BVS. Something that some people will like. It might do decent business, but it's probably not going to light the world on fire.
Yeah.
And it's probably not going to launch the universe like they expected it to.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. Maybe these people just don't get Venom.
Well, and do you think, I think it is a risky move to make a strictly villain movie, right? Like, Sony is basically renting out Spider-Man to Disney right now. So they can't make their own Spider-Man movie, but they're trying to, like, create this universe that is still based on Spider-Man, right? Like, I mean, if we're just upfront about it, Venom would not exist if it wasn't for Spider-Man.
Well, I mean, Venom would not exist if it wasn't for He-Man, but that's another point.
Yeah.
But yeah, without Spider-Man, and the director has said on multiple times that making a Venom movie without Spider-Man was without a doubt the biggest challenge of the movie, because how do you do it?
Yeah, for sure. Like, there has to be. I'm gonna go watch it this weekend. I might drag my wife to it. That's what I do for every superhero movie. It's her favorite thing, right? She's forced to vicariously have this nerd life that she's a big fan of through me.
Your tummy is dead.
All right, so we're gonna go see it. I'm curious to see if there will be like any little Spider-Man nods and Easter eggs in there. Like, I know that there's some end credit stuff, and I don't know what those are. I haven't looked any further than that. I just know that you need to sit and watch the credits. But maybe there will be something in there. Like, I don't know. Like, do you think Sony's trying to do something to get the ball rolling on Spider-Man again, so that when they get when Marvel's done with their lease of him, they get him back, and then they can just like springboard right into this Spider-Verse all on their own?
I mean, I know that's what they're trying to do, and I think they're going to. I mean, honestly, of the Spider-Man movies getting ready to come out, I think Into the Spider-Verse is actually the one I'm most looking forward to, and I think that has a better chance of success at this point. But I mean, they're still at this point. They're planning on doing a Black Cat, Silver Sable solo movie, and they're still talking about doing a Sinister Six. And I don't see how this is going to work out.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Do you think that? Do you think Sony? Like, how many more failed attempts before Sony will just give up Spider-Man?
Well, I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, they can't go forever.
They're just going to keep
end up having to license. They're going to have to license it back to Marvel, or Marvel's going to have to buy it out if it's ever going to turn into anything along the lines of the MCU. I think part of their problem is they need to stop trying to be the MCU. They need to stop trying to build an interconnected world and build a good movie.
Yeah, for sure. Which I think, which I really think part of the MCU success, which I think is the foundation that made them great. It really is. When you boil it all down to it, was that the major licenses for Marvel, maybe you probably know more about this than me, but Marvel had already sold their major licenses off, right? Like X-Men, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man. They had already been bought by Fox and Sony, and basically Disney kind of came in and was like, yeah, they were like, we'll take what's left, right? And so they took over Marvel. That's what they got. It's a harsh word, but they got like the dregs of Marvel, right? So they were forced.
Disney didn't show up until Avengers.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
The MCU was started by Marvel.
Yeah, well,
they actually took financing on. They put up the rights to 10 of their remaining characters: Black Panther, Doctor Strange, whole bunch of them. Oddly enough, not Iron Man, but because they'd actually licensed the rights to Iron Man off to another studio too, and they agreed if they could get funding to produce a movie that. If that failed, they would lose those rights to, I want to say it was Universal is who was distributing the initial batch. And they were trying to figure out what they got the deal, and they were trying to figure out what character to do with, and then the Iron Man rights came back. So then they had Iron Man. They're like, that's who we got to go. But because of the agreement they made, he wasn't one of the characters in the potential deal, so they couldn't use any of the money they got to finance Iron Man. They had to finance that on their own.
Wow. Well,
and had Iron Man bombed, they would have lost everything.
Well, and I think that, you mentioned He-Man, and I've been watching that show, The Toys That Made Us, and He-Man is one of those on there, and a lot like Transformers, all these toys that we grew up with. The common thing that all of those have is this spawning from desperation. Right? It's like, we need to make something. It has to be something new and something that's different, and we need to work with what we got. What can we do that's creative, right? And I think that right there, that's the nail that Marvel hit on the head, is that they were stuck with these characters that were they weren't the characters that everybody in the world knows. Like even Iron Man and Thor, the names that are household names now, at that time, I don't think many people really knew about those characters. They
may have heard of it, but I mean, they didn't know Tony Stark like anywhere near to the realm that they do now.
No, MCU made them a household name.
Norse mythology was probably the more likely response if you said Thor to somebody than Marvel. I mean, not you or me probably, but your average person down the street.
Yeah. Well, I think that really speaks to their success. Is that again? It was that desperation. It's like, we have to make something work with what we got. We don't have. It's not like Batman where there's already been 20 million Batman movies, so we'll just basically mash up 3 of those and re-release it, right? Or Spider-Man, or which you go into it with that mentality where Marvel went in with like, this is what we got to work with. Nobody's really done it yet. Let's just try to do it and make it work. And I think there's a lot to be said for what comes out of that forced scenario, right? It's like you're either going to squirt out a turd or you get enough pressure in there and it's going to be this awesome diamond, and who knows?
You're going to hit that lottery.
Yeah, and I think they've nailed it.
Obviously they did.
And they have really nailed it. I think that they're also starting to hit those strides of it's becoming formulaic and we're getting filler movies. Like I think Ant-Man, very filler movie. I know people are all over Black Panther and they just think it's the best movie in the world. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's very formulaic and fillerish to me also. Like it doesn't it doesn't do a lot standing on its own. And I'm excited to see where the MCU keeps going. I think Ragnarok was probably, and Infinity War. But again, I think you need to know about the whole universe. As far as standalones go, I think Ragnarok was a huge step for the MCU because it broke the mold, right? They did it again by making something new.
Sequel.
No, it wasn't a sequel. It was its own new thing.
Yeah, they had ties, but it was its own new thing, completely different. I mean, heck, they killed Gimli, Jackie Chan, and them Thor's friends right there in the minute after they'd been, there through all the two previous ones, and they kill Odin, and Asgard gets destroyed. It's a whole new thing. That's why Chris Hemsworth might stick around.
Yeah,
he said he might stick if him and Waititi can come up with a good enough story. He'll come back as Thor, which we're not getting a lot of from Robert Downey or Evans.
Yes, totally, and I think that's what makes MCU so great. It's why they are staying so relevant, and I think it's why Sony's suffering so hard, because again they're stuck. They've got a pony that does one trick, right? It's like they're just, and the pony's old, man. Like it can't keep. They keep lowering the bar on the fences, and because it can't make it over them anymore, and it's like, it's just tough, man. I hope that Venom, that when I go see it, I can at least take something away from it. Even if they go there, I guess they're doing a villain movie, so that is something new. But I'd like to see something in there that I haven't seen before, and I hope it doesn't kill this what Sony's trying to do. I really hope it doesn't.
See, I don't know that Venom's really a Venom movie. I know it has some horror vibes to it. That's definitely in place. But especially the comics basis for it, that's his whole anti-hero. I mean, he's more Punisher, say, than Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's definitely a good guy. Well, okay, not definitely a good guy. But, I mean, if you're going to do the black and white thing, he falls more towards the white than the black. Yeah. That wasn't a race thing. I'm talking good and evil. Just
yeah.
I heard that after I said it.
Yeah. Another Gary quote. Somebody's writing this down somewhere, and to do you justice, they will misquote you. It'll be awesome.
It'll be all right. But because from what I know about the movie, and granted, I've only seen some trailers. It's pulling a lot from the Lethal Protector series, which is when he finally made his peace with Spider-Man and went off to San Francisco. And then the Life Foundation, the big bads in the movie, come. They get a hold of him. They steal seeds of symbiotes and grow 5 of their own, which I believe one of them was shown at a trailer at one of the Comic Cons. So, I mean, I don't know that you can really classify him as bad, but yeah, I don't know that you classify him as good either. I mean, like a Deadpool. Only not funny?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, right? Kind of.
I mean, Deadpool wasn't a good guy, but, I mean, he wasn't a bad guy either.
Yeah, like, he's not going to just aimlessly kill people, I guess. That's more like your, at least is my symbiont experience is Carnage. Like, that's more your Carnage, right? Where he's just going to go out, make big blades, and I don't care, I'm going to kill people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, when I think of Venom from the comic books, I never really had a bunch of Venom comics, and I kind of had this limited span where I was really into Spider-Man. It was the Todd McFarlane when he did that run where it was just called Spider-Man, and then Eric Larson took over, right? And that whole run there I got way into, and I remember the black suit coming back. I think at like the 1-year anniversary because it had the same cover as the first issue, but it was the 13th, and it was wearing the black suit, and I remember. Like Mary Jane having a real issue with Peter wearing it because of just how horrible the suit was and all that. I
know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I remember that being like I liked that part of it. Like usually I don't care about the Peter Parker side of it as much. I want him to put on the suit and shoot webs.
You're there to see Spider-Man,
cool.
not Peter.
Yeah, right. But I remember that part in the comics, that was one of the first times, at least in a Spider-Man comic, where I cared more about that side of it because I'd seen some of the Venom stuff and watched that transition happen and watched Peter get kind of evil and scary and then watched that happen with Venom because if I remember right, he took Mary Jane hostage and like that's what spawned her...
I don't know, fair amusement Park at some sort of thing. Yeah, I know what you're talking. Yeah, she did kidnap Mary Jane, and yes, Peter had to go after her.
And then, like,
But where
since
you're
then, she
left
was
at-
off on it. She didn't like that black suit at all. Yeah.
What happened?
And then once, eventually, like around the time Carnage came, that's when Peter and Eddie put their past aside.
Yeah.
To an extent. And once you take outside, trying to kill Spider-Man, eat his brains, all that jazz. Other than that, Venom really didn't do bad things to people.
No, he just hated Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's not part of the equation, then you're left with an anti-hero, which is where we're at with the movies.
Yeah. No, I think that's an awesome full circle there, that maybe we should be aware of that going in to watch it, that this is a Venom movie outside of the realm of being influenced by Spider-Man.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, how they're gonna do him getting the symbiote and all that, I have no idea, but it can't be worse than Spider-Man 3's. At least I hope so. I mean, I really hope so.
How cool would it be if, like, let's say MCU keeps going, right? I think we're getting to the end of all of this, right? And we can get back to that. But let's say the MCU keeps going and we need another Thanos, right? Like, what if that is Secret Wars or something like that, where now we can bring in Fantastic Four and X-Men and we can do this whole big Secret War finale, like what we're doing with Infinity War. And there we actually legitimately get a real symbiont suit introduction. Like, that would be super cool, don't you think? Like, after that, then give us, like, the Homecoming or whatever Spider-Man movie where he's got the black suit and it starts to happen to him.
It would be extremely cool. I think Secret Wars would take a lot of modifications in order to work as a movie.
It would be like Infinity War, right? It would be the same. It would get the same sort of treatment.
Well, I mean, yeah, but Infinity War had... I mean, I don't want to say it had a story, because obviously Secret Wars did. But Secret Wars was... Okay, this takes us back into why He-Man was responsible for Venom.
Yeah.
The Secret Wars was conceived because Mattel went to Marvel and wanted to create action figures. They wanted to copy what they did with He-Man, where they made a bunch of action figures, made the cartoon to help support the action figures, and made a whole lot of money. They tried to get DC on board. DC had already signed with Kenner, so they went to Marvel. And they're like, okay, we want you to create an event, and we want to make these figures and all of that. And that's where Secret Wars came from. And that's why, again, I say He-Man's responsible for it, because they were trying to copy He-Man.
Yeah.
But there's not much of a story to see. Yeah, the Beyonder gathers all these people. They fight for no real reason. It's just basically one long, drawn-out battle. I mean, Doctor Doom does do some cool stuff there at the end, but without having Doctor Doom there.
But let's be totally fair. You're describing Infinity War, right? I mean, basically.
I guess I feel that there's a stronger narrative core to the overall concept of Infinity War than there was necessarily for Secret Wars. But, that's just me.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be cool if they did the Beyonder like they did Thor. Or, I mean, Thanos, right? And, like, you got some end credit of, like, some kind of things hinting at whatever, and then we got it. I mean, we're totally what-if-ing and fantasizing here. They're going to have to do something, obviously, after this. People are going to start trickling off. We're going to get X-Men. I'm assuming that deal will go through. We'll get X-Men, which means we'll get that Fantastic Four is right behind it, and we'll get to tie all those things in. For me, I would love to see them go that route and do something to kind of reinvigorate it, but still have, like, that end goal, right? And then that could totally be a legitimate way to bring the black suit in. I would love for once to see the symbiont suit get brought in, like, legitimately, not in this campy, it's in a canister. Yeah, right. Not in, like, a Ninja like Turtle mutagen ooze way. Like, I want it to be, like, make it legit, right? It'd be cool.
Have you read the most recent Secret Wars, where Doctor Doom combined all the worlds together? I think it was 2015.
No, I haven't.
See, that ties into the Beyonders too, and I think that's a better narrative story. It was done for the anniversary of Secret Wars, but they exploded upon it. Like, all the worlds are crashing together from the different realities because they're all merging, and Doctor Doom, with the help of Mr. Fantastic and the Molecule Man, wrest the power from all the other Beyonders. And then he like basically just takes the worlds and puts them together, like, and then you've got their Emperor Doom, and all the different territories are ruled and such like that. Kind of like Old Man Logan, if you've read that.
Yeah. Well, and I could see Marvel doing that, like clearly, or the MCU, like clearly they would do their version of it, right?
Yes.
Like they're gonna tweak and do whatever to it. But I'm cool with it. I wouldn't be shocked, I guess, if they went that route. We'll have to see. I'm really curious what's going to happen with the MCU as far as the other heroes leaving. Like, are they going to recast them? Are they going to pass the torch? Are we going to have the new heroes step up and take their place but be different heroes? Like, there's so many questions I have about it. I think it's a really cool time for superhero movies because we're hitting a burnout phase, right? Like where we're getting really repetitive. We're starting to fall back, not quite into the trend of like the 90s and 2000, but it's starting to get back into that kind of falling into that mold, right? Where it's just
they all hit the same beats over and over.
Yeah,
just the players are different. Which, I mean, I don't know how you do that without, and yet still bring in the new blood that you need in order to keep the franchise going. But question for you: when the X-Men do come in and to the MCU, is Wolverine there, or do you think they wait? Because of all the characters and all of the movies, nobody is more tied to the old style than Hugh Jackman's Wolverine.
Yeah, and really, I mean, if I'm totally honest with you, as far as those X-Men movies go, Wolverine is the one I love. I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Like he nails it, even though in so many ways it's so wrong as Wolverine, right? It's
I have a problem with that at first, but
it's so wrong. It's not Wolverine is not a pretty boy, right? He's this
not 6 foot tall.
No, he's not. He's hunched over. He's hairy everywhere. He's like rude, and I'm sure he chews with his mouth open and spits when he talks, right? Like there's nothing, he probably smells kind of funky. Like there's nothing appealing about Wolverine. And it took a while for me to come around to that with the Hugh Jackman thing. But now I really love his version of it. And I think in a way that's kind of prepped me for the movie versus the comic book, right? Like there is that difference. One is way more glossy than the other. And so I don't really want him to do it right away because I think that comes back to what we were first talking about, where for me, the thing that makes MCU so impressive is what they started with, right? They did not start with the poster boy heroes that we constantly fall back on. So to suddenly have those people at their disposal, in a way, I'm really concerned about that because I don't want them to rehash what's already happened. I would love to see like a Cyclops movie. Like do something like that where it's something we haven't seen yet and maybe nobody's really ready for it, but it'll be something fresh and new and this new spin on it. Like maybe it's a Cyclops movie that he's trying to figure out what's going on with him, or you even get a little bit of him and Havoc breakup, and then that slowly kind of comes around into an X-Men movie. Like maybe he meets Xavier somehow or I'd like to see it kind of done a little more MCU that way and he could almost replace your Captain America in a way, right?
Yeah, if he was done correctly, which he was in no way, shape, or form was he done correctly in the trilogy.
Yeah.
The initial one.
I don't want him to go with Wolverine right away. To me, that's the easy out. Don't do that.
Yeah, I don't want them to do that, and they're not going to be able to avoid the comparisons. You know, they need a palate cleanser.
Yes. And I think like a Cyclops movie could do it for him. It's something that I don't think anybody necessarily. There's nobody that's checking that box first, right? Like here's your X-Men. What movies do you want? He doesn't get a lot of checks because we're all irritated with Cyclops from the comics, from the cartoons, from the other movies we've seen. He's the Boy Scout we don't care for. But,
either that or he's the homicidal maniac that killed Professor X.
Yeah, right. But
he doesn't have a middle. Well, okay, 90s Scott Summers I was okay with. Like from the animated series. I mean, yeah, he was kind of too much of a goody-goody, but at least I had respect for Cyclops at that point.
And if he did the Captain America thing, where, because I don't like that first, I do now, but I don't like that first Captain America movie, right? But now, now that you see him so jaded in the MCU, to go back and watch that and see him so hopeful and just like everything is so positive and just clear vision for him, to where now everything is so convoluted and he doesn't know what to think or to see or who to trust. I'd love to kind of see that happen with Cyclops. That's my bet, or that's my vote for them, is go that kind of a route again.
And they have a lot of material to base it off of, because throughout the years they've retconned him. Mr. Sinister plays a huge role in Cyclops' childhood on up.
Yeah.
Because he was watching for that perfect time to make Cable, basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's stuff there, even in his past, where they can extrapolate on. It does have a lot of potential. I think that would be the right way to go. Because the most obvious choice is, a movie called X, where Professor X is running around. But we've seen Professor X, and I'm assuming if you got Professor X, you're going to have to bring in Magneto. And we've seen that done to death.
Yes.
For, almost 20 years now.
I would almost prefer...
They were. Those parts I've loved in all the movies, but... Yeah,
they did that pretty... Especially the Patrick Stewart and whatever, the other guy. Like, they actually do it really well. And... Fassbender. I actually really like his Magnetos too. Magneto's been cast pretty well. I like the actors that have played him. I don't know. It's a tough thing to do, I think, because again, there's already been so many movies with them. We already have this like preconceived, idea of what we want from it. So that's a tough gamble for them. I hope they tackle it. I hope again they blow us away with something new. Do you think, if they just keep rolling with it, and let's say Sony's making money off Spider-Man, do you think eventually they just say, screw it, you can rent Venom too? Like, we'll put him out on loan also?
I would, in a perfect world, that would have already been done and part of the Spider-Man package. But I don't see the downside to Sony to let Marvel do it. As I understand it, they got 90% of the profits from Homecoming.
Yeah, the way I get it is they get
Homecoming, and Marvel gets the profits from the Avengers movies or Civil War.
Well, and I think that Marvel gets the profits from the merchandise. Like Sony gets the movie profits, but Marvel gets the T-shirts and slippers and toys and video games and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, in the end, if Marvel does a good job, which maybe that's more incentive for them to go that route and care about the movie part of it in that way, everything around it will give them income that way. So, again, maybe it's this fresh new way to kind of look at it. So I keep giving nods to the MCU for that. Their unique approach to so many things, except for the past few movies they've done. I guess outside of Infinity War.
Infinity War, yes. But again, I don't know how you get, because you can't just throw characters into Infinity War and then that be how they operate. You need the solo adventures, the smaller adventures, in order to flesh out the characters so we care about them in Infinity War.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the solution is, because they basically always have to go back to an origin story, except for in Spider-Man's case. I like that approach they took with it, where they're like, it's Spider-Man, you know who he is, you know what he does, go.
Yeah, well,
they didn't waste time with the Spite, no Uncle Ben. We just hit the ground running.
Well, and really even in Civil War, when we got introduced to him, Black Panther was kind of treated the same way, right? It was like we did get that brief little interaction where the bomb went off and whatever. We got his motivation to get involved, but we didn't get that whole big backstory, which I loved about it. As far as I'm concerned, the best Black Panther, man, it's a toss up on Spider-Man, but easily the best Black Panther is that Civil War movie. I love him in that movie. He's awesome. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'd much rather watch him in that than in that solo movie.
My biggest problem with the Black Panther movie was I was more interested in all of the supporting cast than I was in the hero.
Yes, definitely. Totally. In that exact same boat.
When your hero's the weakest part of the movie, there's something wrong. Not that Chadwick Boseman did a bad job. I think he did the part exactly how they wanted him to do it.
Yeah.
But with with Michael B. Jordan against Michael B. Jordan's performance, the calm, sedate guy isn't going to stand out.
No, and even the other, maybe that was part of the issue, is that Black Panther was so kind of just in the middle, right? He wasn't really an extreme of anything, while the supporting cast were such extremes. Like, because you had your the Michael B. Jordan, you had the gorilla guy, who was, even though he was in it so minimal, he was so extreme and invested in the character he was, that I mean, I loved him. He was one of my favorites from the movie. The his warrior bodyguard chick, same thing, right? Like, there's so many characters in there that were just 1,000,000% their character. And then you have Black Panther, who's like, I guess he's like the peacekeeper. Maybe that's why he's trying to like keep everybody happy. So he's not really committing to anything.
Speaking of Black Panther, did you know he's 41 years old?
The actor is?
Yes.
Wow. He looks good.
I know, it surprised me. I just heard this the other day. They're like, he's 41. Michael B. Jordan's 32 or whatever. And I was blown away. 41 years old.
Yeah. That's not racist, by the way.
No, it's not racist. It's just I was blown away. I mean, he looks younger than me.
Yeah.
That's not saying much.
So here's my biggest concern, especially with the way that superhero movies are going, and with this Venom movie. I don't want what's happened with like Star Wars and Solo to happen to whatever the Sony's Spider-Verse or whatever it is. I don't want that to happen to it. Like, I don't want them to suddenly be afraid to release anything else because the fans are in an uproar, right? Like, I almost feel like the nerds are getting like, we're almost getting a little too powerful, like, in our voice.
Yes, which is something I never thought I would say.
Right?
But, and it's not even, I mean, and it's not just, us. It's, the loud vocal majority. I mean, you and I are on social media, and I don't recall ever seeing us going off like they do. And some of the things they do is absolutely reprehensible.
Yeah.
Driving people away from Twitter, that whole 9 yards. The movies ain't worth that regardless. But the fact that they wield that much power is kind of scary.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat where it's like, I remember being the nerd that nobody would hear you at all, right? You'd try to say something and nobody would hear anything, and now suddenly it is the voice that's being heard. And again, I think that comes back to that they're the standard for the movie, for cinema right now. They just are, which in one tells you the power of cinema, but it also tells you the crazy power of that internet voice, right? And the damage you can do with it. I'm really bummed that I'm not going to get to see another Solo movie. It was one of my favorite of these new Star Wars movies.
It was an excellent movie. I mean, it wasn't mind blowing. It didn't break any real new ground or anything, but it was a perfect popcorn flick.
Yeah, well, and it was different, which is what I wanted, right? It was different than what we had already seen. And I know a lot of people hate on the like The Last Jedi, right? But again, if that movie encourages this new wave of people to get into Star Wars and go back and appreciate the ones that you appreciate, now you have something in common to talk about. And it's also going to encourage more movies that, who knows, well, maybe we'll get another Solo or some other sort of spinoff that's also amazing. But now when people go online and just sit there and hound it to death, it's like you've kind of ruined that opportunity for all of us. It kind of sucks, right? Like, I get not it's like the Hugh Jackman thing, like we were talking, right? Sometimes you got to warm up to it a little bit and realize it's a different interpretation and be okay with that.
Dude, we are living the dream right now. When we were growing up, we dreamed of this. Exactly exactly what we're living through now, with everything going on in the movie theaters and the video games with the Arkham games, with Spider-Man. The comics are starting to do a resurgence as well, which speaks a lot to me. I mean, this is what we always wanted, and we're here, and by God, we're ruining it.
I know, right? Isn't that insane? Like, I don't understand that mentality, and I want him to just chill out. right? I mean, in a way it makes sense because nerds are passionate about things, whether we love it or hate it. We're just beyond passionate about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get that. I really do. But you're getting so much of it right now. This is the nerd
If you don't like
heyday
this
time.
one,
Yeah, there's so many,
try this
man.
one.
Yeah, there's so many out there that you will like. Give it
the
a rest a
Netflix
little bit.
series, the Arrowverse for some people. I mean, the DC universe, DC universe. They're creating whole new shows for that.
Yeah.
Marvel's working on stuff for there's Disney streaming service. We have so much content that we always wanted. Why do we have to bitch so much?
Right? It's crazy
You
to me.
can't-
I never once thought that being a nerd would be cool. I just never did. And now it's almost it's to that point, and you're almost considered out of the loop if you're not into nerdy stuff. Like, I never thought you could start out a conversation as pretty much a safe bet as saying something like, "Have you seen the new MCU movie?" Right? Like, that's an icebreaker. Or have you seen the new Spider-Man? Have you seen the new
My mom has
Thor?
for God's
Or
sake. My mom has.
right? Yeah, it's like that was never icebreakers before. Like, that's just crazy
We
to me.
are everywhere. How much of it do you think is, us nerds are so used to having to passionately defend what we have, and now that, everybody else is enjoying it too, well, we kind of want to take it back.
I think that is part of it, and unfortunately it means that the nemesis of the nerd was the bully, right? It just was. And we all, if you're a nerd, you know what that is. And unfortunately, we're turning into the bully. Like, it's really too bad. But I mean, I get passion. I totally do. And I don't like all the movies at all. And I can tell you plenty that I don't like and plenty that I do like. Mm-hmm. But I'm never going out there and just hating on them. I mean,
no, I mean, I may say, I didn't really care for that, but that's about as far as I go.
Yeah, like I will even go as far as to say that in BVS, there are moments in that movie that make me giggle, right? Like, some of them make me giggle because it's absurd, but some of them make me giggle because it is that Dark Knight Returns, like, moments you wanted to see in live action on film, and you get them.
There.
Yeah, so
there's just some really horrible ones that we never wanted to see that were also there, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, for those, those few seconds when it happens, it's phenomenal, and I absolutely love it, and it's a moment I never thought I would see happen, right? That we would get a live-action version of that, plus a killer 2-part animated movie version of that, is like, I never thought that would happen in my lifetime.
Have you watched that at all?
Oh, yeah.
Wait, are you talking about Dark Knight?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going down the, where Superman dies at the end. I was going off on how they're redoing the animated version of the Doomsday story. My bad.
Oh yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think again that's them. Kind of regurgitating what they've already done a little bit, but
this one they did it right. They did part 1's already out, and I'm like, this is how it should have been.
Nice. I would like to see it then, because if it is that same thing as the Dark Knight Returns, which I was a big fan of that. I still recommend reading the comic over watching that animated movie. The comic is better, but it's a great interpretation of it.
Kind of bothered me, but Peter Weller was Batman. I didn't like that. I when I think Batman, you're probably right along the same lines. I hear Kevin Conroy just automatically.
Yep.
Especially if it's animated.
Yep. Totally.
No, they did. They released part 1 of the Death of Superman, and it's literally the fight. From, like, the Death and Return of Superman was one of the things that just captured my imagination. I was 10, 11 years old or what have you. And I still go back and read those every couple of years as it is. And outside of the fact of they subbed out the B Team Justice League with the A Team, it's pretty much that story.
Okay.
And then part 2 and that's just, the death. And then part 2 is going to be the return with the 4 Superman Pretenders, Superboy, Steel, Cyborg, and Eradicator.
Yeah.
And they're actually doing the whole storyline.
Is Shaquille O'Neal going to voice Steel?
No, but I did remember seeing something not too long ago. He would be willing to reprise the role.
Awesome. Great. That's just what the DC movies need.
He's down.
So you've seen the first animated movie. I have to ask then, in those comics, The Death of Superman, there's 2 scenes that okay, there's several, but two that really stood out to me early on were the one where I think it's Blue Beetle who's just getting pummeled by Doomsday, and Doomsday's even like slamming his head in that car door. Remember that? Just brutal. Does that happen in it?
Well, okay, like I said, they subbed out the B Team Justice League with Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, them.
Okay.
They do, the Justice League does get severely messed up. I mean, bad.
Okay.
I mean, I want to say it's at least a PG-13.
All right. That's cool. I'm into that.
And the second shot?
The second one is when, right after all that, Superman shows up, right? And it shows him in that panel where he's got hands on the hips, chest puffed out, just like, this is my classic Superman pose. I'm going to save the day.
Punches him.
Yeah, he does. I think he does like I don't think it's quite a Chuck Norris roundhouse kick, but he kicks him hard and he just sends him through that house and like through the trees. Yes. And you see the like air come out of his lungs. That's one of my favorites from that.
The house does get taken down. I don't recall that exact scene. They do get the iconic, as Superman's dying in Lois's arms with the blood-torn cape hanging and flowing in the background.
Yeah,
they nailed that. You know, it's the iconic image. They did nail that. They had to change the way the final punch, the Rocky
the dual punch. Yeah.
The dual punch. I mean, they shifted it a bit, but it ends exactly, Lois there holding him. Did I get him? And then he passes away and all that.
All right.
But yeah, I thought it was really good.
All right. You've added something to my list. Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to go see it. I mean, you're going to see it too, right? We kind of have to.
Yes.
We're those nerds.
I mean, I've got no
and you
choice.
know what? Even if we don't like it, we're not going to just totally hound Twitter with a hate fest or be all up Tom Hardy's butt about how much we don't like it, right?
I can pretty much guarantee I'll find at least 5 things I like from it.
Okay, that's it. I like that.
Something there.
We've gone into where we've gone to go watch movies for reviewing them, and like before we go see them, I'll talk with the guys and be like, even like Justice League was the last major example where I was like, okay, we're obviously going to find things we don't like about this movie. Let's take at least a few things away that are good, right? And
As I recall, you didn't hate it.
Oh, I don't hate it at all.
I believe that was the official review. We didn't hate it.
I don't hate it at all. I that is still to this day. It's going to be hard for any superhero movie to reach that Avengers caliber for me. But as far as the DC movies are concerned, there are some phenomenal moments in that Justice League movie that still to this day I love watching. And I think there's also some really phenomenal, what's his name? The director of it, the first guy.
Zack Snyder.
Yes, Snyder. There are some amazing Snyder moments in that movie. Like the first 30 minutes of that movie, 20 minutes of that movie are Zack Snyder at his finest. Yeah, like those moments. Then when it goes into the credits and it has the music backing it, and you get each hero that comes in and has their little moment, and like that is so the Zack Snyder that I love from like Watchmen and 300 and like Sucker Punch, right? Like you can see all those moments in there. Yeah, right. In that beginning of that Justice League movie. So maybe that's what like fuels me to make it through the rest of it, but I don't hate that movie. I think it's one of the better movies that at least this current rendition of the DC universe has put out. I'm okay with it.
It's kind of a shame that was also kind of the end of it too, because since then we've lost Superman.
Yep.
Affleck's in the cowl. He's out of the cowl. I don't know. He's in rehab. I know that for sure. So, I mean, he's probably done.
Which seems so Batman. Like, you'd think he'd come back now, right? Like, don't go to rehab. Just make another movie. It'll be awesome. You could be so Batman.
When Batman got addicted to Venom, all he did was lock himself in the Batcave for like a month and a half. No food, no nothing. And he came out of it fine.
I think the big message is, I think you should go into it thinking we're going to watch a superhero movie. Not that you should lower your standards, because if they are going to be the cinema standard, they should be held to a certain standard, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, don't always go in just looking for the things to tear apart about it. Like you said, come away with like 5 things that are good about it. Because I guarantee there's going to be moments in this movie that make me chuckle and giggle for good reasons and for bad reasons, right? I'm going to have both those moments in this movie. So,
do you think it's possible for the Venom symbiote to ever look, I don't want to say good, but natural on film.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, I don't care how good CG progresses. I just don't see how it's ever going to just look right.
No, I think this looks better than the last
Yes.
version we got, but it still looks hokey. It just does.
It still looks so off.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to go see it. You're going to go see it. I'm going to drag my wife to see it. I think I'm going to have my brother on to talk about it. Maybe if you see it this weekend and you feel like joining us, might have to throw you a shout out and get you back on.
That we probably
Now-
could. I'm pretty much never doing anything on Wednesday.
All right. Well, that sounds good to me. So like I said, no nerd play because Red Dead is coming out and it's way too much nerd for me to try to get another game in. I'm going to basically be doing that for at least a month or
Got 2
two.
weeks. That's it.
Yeah, till November because then online will come out and
then online,
we'll be playing
yeah,
that.
I know.
Right?
And then 2 weeks after that's online.
Yeah,
and
it's never going to end. It's going to be this awesome vicious cycle. I can't wait for it.
I don't know that I want flying cars in there, but if we find a random cave with a DeLorean in it,
A Deluxo. Yes, but I know what you mean. I
Same
hope
thing,
that
yes, same
I
thing.
hope that there's like a billboard advertisement for some new town that will be built that's not quite there yet, and behind it with some bushes and rubble on it will be a Deluxo that you can't move. That would be so Back to the Future and GTA like tribute, right? I'd be into it. That'd be so cool.
yeah, the online's my biggest question mark with Red Dead.
I know.
I don't know how they do it to recapture what even match what they did with 5.
So now you're going to come back and talk about Venom, and you're going to be back for the next month because we're going to talk about Red Dead.
I can do that.
Awesome. And we're going to keep watching our anime, which is Initial D. I'm going to get Jay back in here. We're going to do a whole show about it because I've actually really, really enjoyed it. It's super good. I know you're not the biggest anime nerd, but I totally am. So
Yes.
I'm not quite to the comic book level of anime nerd as you are. But maybe that's somewhat of a comparison.
My problem with anime is it's just these bright, colorful characters jumping around doing unbelievable things with power. Oh, wait, no,
Well,
that's
maybe-
superheroes, my bad.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, you love superheroes. Maybe if somebody directed you into some great gateway animes and then said
Wait,
avoid all the
does
rest.
the Castlevania Netflix series qualify as an anime?
No, and it's not good. I don't care what anybody says. That's not good. It's fine.
It's not bad.
It's like BVS, right? Like it has moments, but it's not good. I can recommend some great anime for you that if you like superheroes, I really don't, and comic books, I don't see why you wouldn't like it. Like there's so many.
I will take that. I will accept that challenge.
All right, we'll dive into that too. Before we cheers each other and bounce out, I have a message from Dad, and I do want to acknowledge it because we're still here. We are still listening to you. And before that, because he always has to get butt in, Jack says start with My Hero. And as far as anime, My Hero Academia. So that's Jack's vote.
I'm aware of it.
I'm not arguing with him on that, but we'll talk about later while that might not be the best gateway one. And strictly for you, Gary, because you're coming from the comic book world. I want to give you one that you'll be like, wow, this is like a comic book, but in 12 episodes.
Give me some lob me some softballs.
Especially because you like these animated DC movies, right? If you can watch
Yes.
those and appreciate the storytelling
Does
and what's going on,
Batman Ninja count?
that's not good. I watched it. I don't count it.
I know, but I
you
watched
can.
it. I was gonna say,
It's
I
got
just watched
ninjas
so
in
I
it, and
Watched it.
voices are weird. It's not the
Yeah,
best
I know.
animation, but I think it does count. It's an American attempt at anime. Maybe we'll call it that.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, I can accept that.
like,
I was gonna say, then I have watched one in the last 6 months.
Yeah. But I do want to acknowledge Dad. He asked us how long are we going to be doing Nerdbuzzed because he would really like to meet us someday. And hopefully he's still listening. But if you are out there still listening, if you keep tuning in to our shows and being entertained by us, we will keep doing Nerdbuzzed. So that's really all it takes. If there's one person listening that cares, we would love to entertain you. So if there's something you want us to talk about, please let us know what that is. And like with Destiny, I would love to find somebody online and play that with them and get my 20 hours in and maybe have you on the show and talk about it. So stay tuned, Dad. Oh, he's still there. Awesome. We really appreciate it. Everybody that comments and watches, it really does mean the world to us. We sleep better at night. Thank you. And I think on that note, Gary, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we will continue to play games. And I'm gonna throw you a softball on the anime first, but I'll throw one to you. And we'll get you back on. You can tell me what you think of it. And we're probably going to have you back in the next couple weeks to talk about Venom or Red Dead. Let's do it. It'll be fun.
Something.
Awesome. So on that note, to all the nerds,
through all the fuzz,
bottoms up. Let's get Nerdbuzzed. You can hold it up there because it doesn't make a difference.
I'm like, yeah, I was like, wait, you guys can't even see it.
Talking about beer. Talking about nerd culture. You're on Nerdbuzzed. Marcus and Jeremiah. You're on Nerdbuzzed.
We got a couple sweet shots of your.
Yeah,
we got a couple sweet shots of your kid running around there with his shirt off. Ladies.
And then he's wanting to talk to me. I'm like, dude, please just go in your room. He's asleep now, of course, but son of a bitch. I didn't have this